It's one of the more scrutinized martial arts for right now. So that's why I wanted to think about this is what are the different things that you can take away from it? Because it's really easy to say what you don't like about something when you have first seen it, you haven't taken it, but where more benefit comes from taking it, having seen it, and then analyzing what you enjoy about it.
Perfect.
What is up, everybody? Seth Adams here. And that's right, I said Seth Adams because we have Sensei Ando in the house. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. And please, we are all sensei to one another. We all can learn from each other. So hello, Sensei Seth.
So what I wanted to talk about, we just recently did a podcast on your channel, which I'm super excited to hear. I want to give them a taste, if you will. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to ask you, one, which styles you've taken, and then two, what you feel like you've gotten like your main value point from each style, whether it be like, oh, I feel this way about something, or oh, this is my favorite kick that I've ever learned. It changed the way I think about things, or whether it's like a style of learning, something like that.
Whose feelings can we hurt first? Let's see.
Yes, I'm all about the hurting feelings. No, just.
And let me say right up front, results may vary. A lot depends on what school you're going to and who your teacher is and who your training partners are. You can have vastly different experiences under the same name of an art. So let me just say that right up front.
Right. Yeah. No. And you can have vastly different experiences under the same teacher. Let's hear it. Let's start from the origin. What your first style was and what your main takeaway was from that experience.
All right. I would say Jeet Kune Do would be the first one informally because my first influence was Bruce Lee, getting his Bruce Lee training method books and then his Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And the philosophy of it seemed like I don't need a teacher the way I interpreted it as a young man. Cool. It seemed like, oh, you're supposed to create your own way and express yourself. So I can put a heavy bag up in the garage. I can invite friends over and I will develop my own thing, that there's no reason to go to a traditional school and all of this organized mess and despair. Right. Do it on your own. So that's what I played with for a few years in my garage. Right. And the benefit of that was from an early age, you have confidence in the things that you're finding. On my own, I was thinking like, yeah, these knuckles work better, or yeah, that kick works better if I do it like this, or hey, I got my foot down on that. I think that's a good move. Right. So on that sense, it was very free, and you really felt like you're on the path because as long as you're working, you're going to learn. Right. On the other hand, you do need a teacher. Right. Yeah. Otherwise, you're sitting there reinventing the wheel, and you also have a very limited number of people you can train with because it's probably just your family or your friends. Sure. And you're not getting pushed to that next level because maybe they're not training like you are. So, and plus the teacher is there to tell you like, well, yeah, but if you do it that way for too long, 10 years from now, you're going to have a knee injury. Or if you try that against somebody who's bigger than you, that won't work at all. So you do eventually, I needed to get out of the garage and go searching for a style, a teacher, other people with experience to give you that filtering system to make sure you don't take anything too seriously until you run it through your system and see if it pans out. Yeah, a lot like water, my friend, right? Well done, sir. After my probably wrong interpretation of Jeet Kune Do, I found a Taekwondo school. Didn't know what Taekwondo was at the time, but I signed up for it. And I liked uniforms and order and that military kind of feel. It met my personality, met up with me very well. And I think this was ITF Taekwondo, so this was a little more like a Shotokan type of style. Yep. So I'm going to put ITF Taekwondo and Shotokan into the same bucket for this analysis, because eventually I also studied Shotokan. The emphasis on long and strong stances and very strong punctuated movement, really focusing on that kime, I think is a great way to learn body coordination and focus. I think most people walking around, when you don't have training, you're uncoordinated. In mind, body, spirit, let's use that term, let alone from ankle to wrist to neck, body connections. But there's also your breath connection and your feelings and your emotions. There's a lot that you're juggling on a daily basis. And when you take the time in a very exaggerated body form, in Northern Shaolin and some Choi Li Foot is like this too, long fist styles, where you have to really literally stretch your body to the limits and then also end with a specific time, like bam,
Right.
Bam, bam.
Mm-hmm.
You're forced to really get everything together on the same page as best as you can and bring it together and bring it together and build that focus. And if that's exemplified by a board break or a brick break, it's easy to say, nobody fights like that. Well, of course we don't fight like that. But as a training tool to organize your body and coordinate your mind, body, and spirit, I found those arts absolutely crucial for that development.
I've always had like the same kind of thought process about Kata. Like a lot of people don't like Kata, but it teaches you how to move your body, and it teaches you the body mechanics, and literally everything you just said are some of those things that come along with good Kata practice the right way. So I love that. All right, moving on. Next one. Right. So we got Jeet Kune Do. We got ITF. We added some Shotokan. Jeet Kune Do. Well, Jeet Kune Do is the theory anyway, isn't it?
Well, that's the way as a young man reading the book, his notes, that's what it felt like to me, that you're allowed to find your own way. But of course, when it once became more systematized, or then of course there'll be people who say, well, you never learned Jeet Kune Do because you didn't have a teacher. And you're right, I didn't. But as a philosophy, it's still in my head that even when I'm doing Taekwondo, I have to Jeet Kune Do it and make it mine.
Sure. So, and I mean, if you had bought a math book and you had read everything in the math book, would you say you taught yourself math?
That's a trick question. I don't want to say anything. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I like books.
Cool.
Aikido.
Let's hear it.
At the same time that I was in the Taekwondo, I did like a 3-year stint in Aikido. So granted, not a lot, but I have positive things to say. So leave me alone.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to say that it's one of the more scrutinized martial arts for right now. So that's why I wanted to think about this, is what are the different things that you can take away from it, because it's really easy to say what you don't like about something when you have first seen it, you haven't taken it, but where more benefit comes from, more the positive action comes from taking it, having seen it, and then analyzing what you enjoy about it.
Absolutely. And that's a good preface to the whole thing. When people criticize a style, one, they often don't know what they're actually working on and why. And two, there's a big difference between part-time students and full-time students, professional martial artists.
Yep,
if you're a part-time student, you're looking for one-stop shopping. I just want everything I need, and that may not even be a lot. I just want it right here, and that's enough. But if you're in this for the long term, you're in a style and you realize, hey, there's a gap in my game and this style's not answering it. I need to go over here to talk to those guys because they specialize in that. Sure. And then you go there. Then you find a new problem in your game. You go, you know what? I don't have an answer for that, but this style's not answering that. I need to go over there and answer that question. And that's where you become a multi-discipline martial artist, just because that's the way it is. There are very few arts that answer every question, every need that you're going to have as a human being and as a martial artist. So for me personally, Aikido, there was one physical thing I'd say and one philosophical vibe that I really have carried with me and I think are important and answered some problems in my game. One, on the philosophical side, I think the idea of mutual preservation with an attacker is the one we should always be hanging on to as martial artists. The idea that when you get that wrist and you get the chance to break it, that you don't have to break it, that there is another way to still control someone, even though they're trying to kill you, that you still have the power within you to make a choice, is a really great philosophy. How well you can enact that and use that in life, I at least like having it as an option. So as opposed to arts that are kill, 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 break, 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 die, 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 jail, jail, jail. Right? So legally and morally, I think it's a very sound philosophy that should be an umbrella over every martial arts style. And I'd like to think that most styles are okay with the idea of like, well, don't hurt them if you don't have to.
Right.
We all know people who just, once they get that permission slip, like, oh, I can break an arm like this, then I guess that's the only option. I have to break
arm broken. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it's better when you have the philosophy, which I first found in the Aikido, to say, well, okay, if you're in a position of control, why not choose to just let it go or try to make a friend out of him instead of just hate him? And nowadays, as we all know, with all the conflict and turbulence, if we can find ways to work together, even when someone's bringing you hate, you can find a way to find common ground, turn it around, and end up being friends and at least understanding each other instead of just saying no and smash and destroy. Obviously, that's the path to a better world. So that was one thing that I was first introduced to in Aikido.
That makes sense. And we had talked about that in the podcast. So make sure you guys go check that out. But we had talked about that of putting yourself in the driver's seat of your emotion and kind of understanding when things that if you can control it yourself, then you usually have the upper hand rather than being dictated by your emotion or by your teaching and stuff like that. Being able to have that extra little bit of control is always crucial. But anyway, sorry.
Amen, Sensei. Amen.
Awesome.
Then on the physical with Aikido, to me, and it's going to sound simplistic, however, just the fact that your center, I'm going to say that the other big benefit of Aikido is really respecting your center and your attacker center. In Aikido, you're constantly rolling and flipping and falling. And many martial arts, when you're just doing stand up, you're only used to being coordinated and feeling confident on one level, on one plane of existence.
Sure.
And right from the beginning in Aikido, you're tipped upside down. You have to really find your center and literally and spiritually, like, where am I? Who am I? What's going on here? And try to get your bearings no matter what's going on. Because you have to take some crazy falls. As you go up in Aikido, there's some crazy falls.
Right.
And I think that's really great preparation for, who knows, you get in a fight in a park, you get punched, you roll over a picnic table, you bounce over a cooler, you got to get back up and fight and pick up a salami and hit somebody.
Yeah. Because that kind of thing can be disorienting too.
The fall, you mean, or being hit with a salami?
Yes.
Both. Yeah, and I believe, I saw a study years ago, and who knows, I'm not going to back it up with the literature, but that there were more injuries in Aikido than almost any other martial art, and probably judo is number 2, just because there's just so much falling and impact with the ground. And like when you see, like recently, that clip of the old man who was pushed by a cop maybe, and he goes back and he hits his head. We know that the older you get, the higher your risk of dying or having a complication from a fall. That's a big issue, falling. Just falling. As a martial artist, you can't walk around knowing where your center is and being able to take a fall, take a punch, get knocked off balance, even just emotionally. Someone hurts you or dumps you or rips you off, and just be able to breathe, find your center, get your bearings so you can make a fight back or walk away. That would be the 2 big things I got from Aikido, I would say.
That's amazing. Okay, so those are, I've loved the things we've taken so far. We've taken away principles and freedom. We've taken away movements, application of when to fire, and then we've talked about maintaining balance through life and through body. So your next journey was?
Right. Then I fell into a Kung Fu style, which is kind of an atypical style. It's not really form-based or partnered, choreographed partner drills. So let's just talk about Kung Fu. Kung Fu, of course, is a catch-all term. So when people say, I hate Kung Fu or Kung Fu doesn't work, they often, they don't even realize that there is no Kung Fu. There are so many different styles of Kung Fu, and they contradict each other and have different approaches, that there really is no one style you can just say, Kung Fu stinks. It's like, well, okay, that guy stinks, but that doesn't speak for all Kung Fu. But the one thing I appreciate about Kung Fu in general is especially the ones that would get the most harassment, the ones that are doing lion dancing and have jiaos and qigong sets and the breathing and the medicinal ideas and the deeper, full-bodied traditional Kung Fu styles. Because the reason I think that those deserve respect and another look is that is all the result, genuinely, of hundreds of years of a culture developing something. It wasn't designed just for 20-year-olds who are in their prime, who can bang and hit bags hard and stand and take a shot and give it back. Just the very fact that it lasted for so long and then you'd pass on, it speaks to people as they get in their middle age and their older age, that you can't just stand and bang with people. And all the forms, all the so-called fancy things are really just, it's an effort to be clever, not just fast and strong. And of course, then it just opens the door to misunderstanding. Like, oh, look, you're trying to hit them with crane beaks. And it's like,
of course,
you're not looking deeply enough. Anybody could just come by and say, make fun of stuff that doesn't look like what they think fighting looks like. But they're only looking at it through their lens. One-on-one, 2 guys who are 20 banging the heck out of each other. That's a fight. That's one level of fighting. But what if you're 40? What if you have a bad leg? What if you're blind? There are so many other ways to approach the problem of fighting. And I believe the traditional styles, if they're taught well and by a knowledgeable instructor, and I grant that many traditional arts lost their way. Got it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't look to some of them and say, are you one of the guys who lost the way, or are you one of the guys who can still understand what this stuff's about. Because when you find one of those guys, I've been lucky to find some cool guys. You say, oh my God, the knowledge that you guys are passing down represents generations of trial and error. Not just with fighting, but how to use your body better, how to breathe better, how to just be still supple and flexible as you get older so you can fight. If everything was just bang, 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 there's not much left for a 50-year-old guy and beyond. So I really respect that Kung Fu is deep. It's as deep as you're able to train or your teachers open doors for you. Granted, that takes some looking. But if you find it, I still think it's the king or queen. It's the top because it's just got the longest history of information and technology that still can be applied. Fighting hasn't changed. Killing is killing. Being killed is being killed. And when you get guys who can deal with, all right, well, axes. I have axes in my hands and spears. Why do all these traditional schools have all these weapons on the wall? It's because we're not just thinking about a drunk guy in a parking lot. We're talking about villages defending themselves from other villages, and everybody, every man, woman, and child's got to grab something and go out and kill. Be killed. You can't just discount those hundreds of years of martial history and experience and think, well, they never knew how to fight. Really?
And what's crazy is how
horse legs. I mean, this is real combat if you get into it. So anyway.
And it's crazy how much of that moves into, like, you see those things and they'll look subtle or different. I like to think of it as a lot like the difference in like language. Like if we were taught English tomorrow, we wouldn't be speaking the way we are now because we have so much slang. And if I was writing in print, the difference could be cursive, which like looks different. It's faster though, right? It has different application, different scenarios. So that's one of those things that's cool to me, and especially hearing that from you. Of how the application of it separated from sport, because that sport was designed to be the best sport that it could around that training style. And something that's really cool is how usually what happens when two people train and they find a really good way to move their body, they could never talk to each other but still come to the same conclusion. And by training for so long, and they still have the same conclusion that it must really work.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I'm not one of those guys who's MMA, cage fighting, that's not a real fight. No, all that stuff is obviously fantastic and very effective. But if you're not an elite athlete, you might need other tricks. And a lot of the fancy stuff, so-called, those are other tricks. Not just techniques, but strategic tricks. And that's a whole other conversation. But respect.
No, that's an incredible point. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you, but also to make sure everybody else, and let's be honest, odds are if you're subscribed to this channel, you don't just follow me, but you follow him as well. If there's any chance that you don't already, make sure you go follow him. I'll put all the links here. Make sure you listen to the podcast. Remind me the name of the podcast itself.
Fight for a Happy Life.
Fight for a Happy Life. You got it. I appreciate you so much for hopping on. If there's anything else that you want to direct people to, now's your opportunity.
Not at all. You know where to find me. Come on by, everyone. Lights are on. Pie's in the oven. Come on over.
Then you might as well, because there's so many people who aren't. Like it's so easy to talk about when you get off a flight. And you're like, that was the worst flight I've ever had. And tweet about it and be like, but you very rarely hear anybody who's like, that was a great flight. I flew through the air in a big metal machine, right?